Welcome to the Exam Room Live, brought to you by the Physicians Committee. Hi, I am the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll, and this is the healthiest half hour anywhere online today, and we appreciate you joining us right here on Facebook and on YouTube. For the next half hour, we are going to be giving you a gut check, getting your gut in proper working order, and to do that, we will be opening up the doctor's mailbag and welcoming Dr. Will Bulsiewicz to the program. He is here to answer your questions, exploring the relationship between the food that you eat and the effect that it has on your gut health. We're going to be dealing with chronic diseases and the day-to-day discomfort, everything in between. So go ahead. If you have a question for Dr. Bulsiewicz that you would like to get answered on the program today, all you need to do is leave a comment or post it in the chat box. You can also tweet that to us using the hashtag ExamRoomLive. Already great questions are in the hopper. We have somebody wondering about IBS and how much eating a plant-based diet can help with that. Someone else asking about, this is a new one to me, the spudfit diet, eating only potatoes. What will that do to your gut health? Is it even healthy? We're going to be talking about that and a whole lot more. So go ahead and drop your question into the mailbag. Again, leave it in the comments or the chat box or tweet it to us using the hashtag ExamRoomLive. But let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and welcome the man of the hour, the author of Fiber Fueled, Dr. Will Bulsiewicz. Welcome to the Exam Room Live, my friend.
Chuck, thank you so much for having me in the Exam Room Live. It's always an honor to be here to connect with you, to connect with the audience who's at home hanging out with us. And I want everyone to know that this is the healthiest half hour literally on the entire planet. And what that means is that every other person on the planet right now who is not a part of this is less healthy than you are. So therefore, we are winning right off the bat. And I just want to say, Chuck, that I want to apologize for two things. And it has to do with the reality that we are in a global pandemic.
Okay.
I am in desperate need of a haircut. That's number one. All right. So I'm going to apologize up front for that.
Okay.
But it's nothing to do with gut health, but I'm going to say that. And then the second thing is that there were 12 seconds to go as the countdown was occurring. And I saw the picture that was appearing in the video screen. And I realized that I had folded towels on the couch over my shoulder right here. All right, folded towels over my shoulder. And I said, do I get up with 12 seconds to go and try to move the towels? And I realized, you know what? We're in a global pandemic. We're all just doing the best that we can.
Just let it go. I mean, there's a reason that this camera is pointed at me and you don't see what's off to the left and what's off to the right, right? So I've got nothing but moving boxes. My house right now is a disaster. So don't worry about some little itty bitty towels, my friend. The important thing is that we just get some good information out there. And by the way, your hair does not look that bad.
Well, I mean, I admire the man bun. I wish that I have a few more weeks to go before I could get to man bun status. And so I'm in this interim phase here where it's like, do you go to get it cut, or do you have your mother-in-law do it, or do you just go for it, let it grow, and then get the man bun going?
Yeah, I just let it grow, get the man bun. I mean, I did that to annoy my wife at first, and then I kind of grew to like it. But I'll tell you, my issue now is I had that undercut, and I'm letting that grow out on the side too, and so it looks a little bit sloppy. But you know what? We're in a pandemic, and we're just going to do the best that we can with the mop that we have on the top of our head.
You will all find the answer to what I do with my hair in March 2021 here on the Exam Room podcast.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Now, we've talked enough about hair and towels and household disasters. Let's go ahead and talk about gut health, because that is why people are here today. So let's go ahead and open up that doctor's mailbag. The first question, flat out, can IBS be improved by adopting a plant-based diet?
100%. The ideal diet for a person who has irritable bowel syndrome actually is a plant-based diet. The reason why is that I'm a big believer, Chuck, in getting to the root of the problem. Let's not just cover it up. Let's not just put a finger in the hole or cover it up with a sheet. Let's actually identify where the problem exists and let's correct it. And the problem that exists in irritable bowel syndrome is damage to the gut microbiome. How do we reverse damage to the gut microbiome? The way that we reverse it is actually by feeding it fiber that you will only find in plants. Plants have a monopoly, they have exclusive access to the fiber. So if you want fiber to feed your gut microbiome, which is ultimately what is necessary to reverse irritable bowel syndrome, then you have to move towards eating more fiber, which you get from a plant-based diet. That being said, real quick, I just want to say that many people will hear this and go, but doc, I feel horrible when I eat fiber. I feel horrible when I eat a plant-based diet. The person who needs this diet the most is also the person who will struggle the most to implement a plant-based diet. And there is a process that you work through as you start to introduce these foods over time to restore function and to build up the health of your gut microbiome. And when you do that through a plant-based diet, you will see that the symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome will wane and start to disappear until they are gone. And then you will win.
All right. Next question. Have you heard about this one? This is a new one to me. A fad diet I was yet unfamiliar. Spud diet, eating nothing but potatoes to lose weight. And so somebody is wondering, what are your thoughts on the spudfit diet, talking about eating nothing but potatoes and sweet potatoes? What is your take on that?
I think that there's a very high likelihood that we'll see a book emerge by Dr. Stephen Gundry promoting the spudfit diet sometime in the next 2 to 3 years. But to be honest with you, and in all seriousness, when you think about this diet, let's be real. Eating only potatoes can't possibly be healthy for a human being. Eating any one item over and over and over again can't possibly be healthy for a human being. All foods, all plants have their strengths and their weaknesses. They have their own unique nutrient profile. There are certain nutrients that they are fantastic at, and they will support your health and give you exactly what you need. But guess what? Just like us human beings, they have their weaknesses too. And so if you only ate kale, or in this case, only eat potatoes, you will ultimately create a diet that is overexpressing a very, very limited number of nutrients and really underexpressing or underconsuming an adequate amount of the rest of the nutrients. So at the end of the day, I would not recommend a spud-fit diet if you're looking to enhance your health. I want you to understand that the most important thing for a healthy gut microbiome is the diversity of plants in your diet. And this is an important concept, whether you are vegan, plant-based, whether you are paleo, keto, whoever you may be, the single most important thing for a healthy gut microbiome is the diversity of plants in your diet. So let's not lose sight of that if we're trying to eat for better health.
All right, we talked about IBS. Now let's talk about Crohn's. Somebody is writing in, they say, I recently switched to a plant-based diet and I'm having a flare-up of Crohn's. Why might this be happening? Could it be that my body is detoxing?
Well, first of all, let me just say that there are multiple potential triggers for a flare-up of Crohn's disease, most of which would have nothing to do with a dietary change. So it is not inherently true, even if the timing of the Crohn's disease flare occurred around the time of the dietary change. That doesn't necessarily mean that it was actually triggered by the dietary change. There are so many things, whether it's sleep, whether it's stress, whether it's medications. Uh, there are many potential causes for a Crohn's disease flare. Now, that being said, when you change your diet, you are asking your gut microbes to change with you and to support the change that you are making. And this does take time. And whether you have Crohn's disease or irritable bowel syndrome or no digestive disease at all, when you change your diet, there is a period of adjustment that needs to take place in order for your gut microbes to adapt to the current diet that you are now moving them towards. And so now this is particularly true and also challenging to a person who has Crohn's disease, because similar to a person with irritable bowel syndrome, but to an even greater extent, the person who has Crohn's disease has damage to their gut microbiome at the root of their problem. And this is part of the challenge that exists for this person. Implementing a plant-based diet is not so straightforward of, oh, go eat more plants. There is a process, and in some cases, the assistance of a plant-based versed registered dietitian may be of benefit to the person who is trying to balance the change in their diet, moving towards plants, against their chronic health condition, in this case, Crohn's disease, but it could be any of a number of other conditions. You just need to accept that it's going to take time, that this is the direction that is in the best health interest of your Crohn's disease and your global health. And so having the support and assistance that you need to make it successful is really what you need to be looking for.
Paula in the comments right now just wrote that she could live on French fries. I just don't think that that is the healthiest option there. But that does kind of bring us to a great question from Bradley, wondering, is it possible to be healthy and lose weight even when you have been eating vegan processed foods every now and again? Probably talking about some of those vegan meats and probably the snacks out there, the cheeses. What's your take on that?
Well, first of all, when you choose vegan processed foods, such as vegan meats, we should celebrate the fact that no animals were harmed in the process of creating that food. Or, I realize that there are these tangential arguments that people will make of, oh, some animal at the factory or something like that. But in reality, we are not directly causing harm to the animals when we make that choice. I celebrate that. I think it's fantastic. When it comes to our dietary pattern, the reality is that our dietary pattern is a broad view of everything that we are choosing to put into our mouth and send down the tube. And no one is perfect. Perfection, it doesn't exist. I'm definitely not perfect. There are foods that are processed vegan foods that I love. I am a huge Not a Moo fan. I don't have it every night. In fact, I don't even have it once a week. But I do love Not a Moo, and when I want a treat, that's what I do. I wouldn't be too hard on yourself. You consume the occasional vegan processed foods, you have a great diet. In my book, Fiber Fueled, I actually said at the end of the book that I'm of the belief that if 90% of your calories are coming from whole foods, plant-based, if 90% of your calories are coming from there, you have a healthy diet, and it would be very hard for me to argue otherwise. Don't let perfection stand in the way of a really fantastic health promoting diet, because perfect does not exist.
Oh, that is such a great point, and it's something that a lot of people get caught up in is that perfection, and they're so worried, and they feel like just this immense sense of guilt if they do slip up or feel like they have a slip up, and they drink not a moo, as your example was, or eat that one serving of French fries or whatever the case may be, that somehow they're a sinful vegan. I'm not sure that that is necessarily the case. I agree with you 100%. The important thing is not to drink that every day, not to eat the fries every day, or those accidentally vegan foods like Oreos every single day. If you are able to indulge and not trigger like a food addiction and just fall completely off the rails, there, what are you going to do? Indulge every now and again.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that the important point here is I'm not arguing that you should eat those foods,
Right.
but I think that you need to create some wiggle room for imperfection, because we all have that.
Yep.
And when you strive towards perfection, it actually puts you on a path, Chuck, the way that you're describing it, that I would describe as disordered eating, right? It may not be as severe or as intense as anorexia or bulimia, but when you have an unhealthy relationship with your food, where food provokes anxiety or stress, that is actually disordered eating. And we want to stay away from that, because it's a pathway that's not going to bring health into your life. If anything, it makes your gut less healthy.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about something that a lot of people love, especially in the morning, and that is coffee. Survival Rebellion wondering, does coffee create a harsh environment for the microbiome, or is it okay?
10% of people have a genetic predisposition towards diarrhea when they consume coffee. If you are one of those people, that is something that you inherited from your parents. You should blame them. It's their fault. But the other 90% don't have that genetic predisposition, and we can evaluate coffee on its own merits. And what we see is that, believe it or not, Chuck, In the standard American diet, which of course we know here on the Exam Room podcast is not a healthy diet, perhaps the least healthy diet in human history, but in the standard American diet, the number one source of antioxidants is coffee. So it can be a source of health promoting phytochemicals. We do believe that coffee has a benefit to the gut microbiome. There was a recent study published in the journal Nature, which was a powerful study from a company called Zoe that is connecting our food to our microbiome, our continuous glucose monitor, and our blood lipids. And one of the things that they found a lot of things, but one of the things that they found is a very clear cut connection between coffee consumption and specific gut microbes. So from my perspective, I don't view coffee as being innately negative for the gut microbiome. There are some people, particularly those who have irritable bowel syndrome with diarrhea, that will want to cut the coffee out for the sake of improving their symptoms. But the other thing I would mention, Chuck, is that, and this is a little health hack for the people who are here in the healthiest half hour on the planet, you can make your coffee a vehicle to improve your gut health, not just drinking it black, not just removing the artificial sweeteners and the dairy, but you can also add prebiotic fiber supplements, which dissolve because they're soluble fiber. So an example of that is acacia powder or wheat dextrin. They will dissolve in a cup of coffee. You can also add additional spices, which you will enjoy. They will tickle the tongue and they will feed your gut microbes. Let me give you a quick example of a pattern. Turmeric, cinnamon, and ginger. Try it and report back to me and let me know what you think.
All three? Like, are we talking just like a dash of each?
We're talking all three, and we are talking about basically a dash of each. It's hard for me to say, hey, take X amount, because what we would probably be talking about is about 1/8 of a teaspoon
Mm.
for each of these. That's probably what it would be. For me, I just take it and I do a sprinkle, 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 sprinkle. I realize that's not precise, but you do it to flavor. And once you establish that baseline, you see what you think of the flavor. You can make adjustments based upon your own palate.
Oh man. Well, the best recipes call for a dash of this, a sprinkle of that, forget about exact measurements, right? Jill checking in on Facebook. She writes that the fiber fueled book is excellent and I've cooked most of the recipes and followed the 4-week plan. It is completely worth it. So Jill, thanks for checking in and watching today. That's pretty
Love
cool.
that. Thank you, Joe.
Queen Logic wants to know, are spicy foods good for gut health? I heard that they may destroy good gut bacteria.
I think anything consumed to excess, if you consume spicy foods to the point that you give yourself diarrhea, that is your gut microbiome giving you a warning shot, basically telling you that you've taken this a little bit too far. It's time to back it down a little bit. But are spicy foods consumed in an appropriate amount that do not elicit symptoms, digestive symptoms, are they bad for the gut health? No. In fact, many times those foods that contain the spices that we enjoy and then enhance the flavor of our food, they also contain unique phytonutrients that can be beneficial to our gut microbiome, and therefore we would want them to be a part of our diet. So like many things, Chuck, there is an amount that is the sweet spot where you are deriving benefit, and there is an amount that if you take it too far, you can actually hurt yourself. And this is true not just of food, Chuck. This is true of water. You could drink too much water. This is true of oxygen. We could consume too much oxygen, even though we need it to sustain human life.
We've talked coffee. Now let's talk about smoothies. One of the best things about having those high-powered blenders in the kitchen is making the smoothie. So, World Mind wants to know, is there actually any benefit to your gut for drinking a smoothie?
Well, there is a benefit because the alternative, health movement, if you want to call it that, is juicing. And I've never really understood this concept of juicing and why we would want to take the fiber out and throw the most important part of the food into the trash can. I just don't really get that. So the beauty of the smoothie is that you retain the fiber. Now, make no mistake, the food is changed. It's not exactly the same as if you were to eat the berries directly. But in some cases, actually, the blending process enhances our ability to get access to specific nutrients in our food. So would I say that it's like categorically advantageous and we should only eat blended food and not eat regular salads? No, I wouldn't say that. What I would say is like many things, there's advantages and disadvantages to the choice. So have some smoothies, have some salads, eat some berries, a little bit of everything.
Big sweet potato wondering, do probiotics work in capsule form?
First of all, I thought this was going to be a question about a big sweet potato, and I was very excited. My heart skipped a beat, and then we had to transition into the probiotics, it was like womp womp womp.
Eh,
But it's okay. It's a good question. People are very interested in probiotics, and the reality is, I want to be very upfront with people, and I want to be honest. I want to be honest. Probiotics have transformed into a multi-billion-dollar industry. There is a lot of money being made on probiotics. And guess what? Multi-billion dollars has transformed into huge, powerful marketing campaigns designed to convince you that the way to gut health is through a probiotic. When in fact, the way to gut health is not through a probiotic. The way to gut health is through your diet. Diet and lifestyle are the key. You can't take a C- gut and turn it into an A+ by taking a probiotic. That's not possible. But you could take a C- gut and turn it into an A with diet and lifestyle. And then you may find that the probiotic gets you from an A to an A+. I don't recommend probiotics categorically, meaning if you are in health, you certainly do not need probiotics. And do I lean on probiotics in my clinic as a gastroenterologist for my patients who suffer with digestive diseases? Chuck, you would be shocked at how infrequently I pull for probiotics in my clinic. And here's why. Chuck, I'm going to use you as an example. I hope you don't mind.
go ahead, my man.
You are a unique individual. There is literally no one on the planet with a gut microbiome exactly like you. In fact, Chuck, our studies have shown us that if you had an identical twin who was raised in the same house and has the exact same genes as you would still only share 34% of your gut microbes.
Wow.
So, being a unique individual, you have unique needs. This is our bio-individuality. We all know, everyone knows, we're not all the same. We have unique needs, and this is the expression of our bio-individuality. Now, when I take a probiotic, Chuck, and I say to you, Chuck, take this probiotic for your gas and bloating, or take this probiotic for your constipation or your irritable bowel syndrome, I'm giving you a generic formula. And as your GI doctor, I am crossing my fingers and I'm hoping that when this generic formula drops down into your large intestine and comes into contact with 38 trillion microbes, crossing my fingers, I'm hoping that you are going to get the benefit that you are searching for. But the problem is, I'm not going to know whether or not there's chemistry until you actually try it. Because this probiotic was not tailored to your unique needs. I'm giving you a generic formula and you are unique. And I can only hope that the generic formula is going to serve your unique needs. And this is why I'm not a huge probiotic fan. Whereas on the flip side, with fiber, particularly dietary fiber, but also potentially fiber supplements, prebiotic fiber supplements, the advantage is even though you have a unique microbiome, Chuck, I know that if I feed your gut microbes, I know that we're going to get certain benefits out of that. And so I don't need to know what the makeup of your gut microbiome is to know whether or not fiber is good for you. I already know that. So I might as well do it.
All right. Next question. This is a pretty popular one. Don't worry, be happy is wondering whether apple cider vinegar is good for the gut.
There are some studies that suggest that vinegar may have health benefits, including for insulin sensitivity, meaning that it is the opposite of type 2 diabetes. With regard to the gut microbiome specifically and studies connecting the apple cider vinegar to the gut microbiome, I haven't seen any study that makes it clear that apple cider vinegar is in your best health interest. I would caution people against taking concentrated apple cider vinegar and swallowing it down. It's very caustic and has the potential to cause injury to your intestines. I'm going to tell you, Chuck, that as a gastroenterologist, I do endoscopy for a living. I use a flexible tube that's the size of my ring finger, and I go down into the stomach and I take a look and I see what's going on. And I've had many patients who do apple cider vinegar, hoping that it's going to treat their digestive issue. And then when I look in the stomach or in the esophagus, I see ulcers. And so I would be very cautious about taking it in concentrated form. If, however, you want to take apple cider vinegar and dilute it down with water, you are now preparing a beverage that I would put somewhere on a spectrum similar to kombucha. And I would encourage you to maintain the unpasteurized form of the apple cider vinegar, which means that it includes the mother. That means that it has live bacteria. So those are my thoughts with regard to that.
That's a pretty in-depth answer. Man, that's like everything you need to know right there about apple cider vinegar and your gut. Man, that was a
Boom.
fantastic answer, man. That is a knowledge nugget if there ever was one.
Mic
Um,
drop.
for real, man. But we can't end there. We still have time to fill here. This is an interesting one from Jessica. I recently started taking an iron supplement and have experienced extreme constipation. That's no fun. Do you have any suggestions?
Yes, I do. Actually, iron supplements are known to do this. Iron supplements cause constipation. And iron supplements, the traditional iron supplements like ferrous sulfate, for example, are known to be caustic to the gut and potentially inflammatory. All right. Now, plant-based iron is not caustic, does not cause constipation, and plant-based iron is also something that you can fulfill your iron needs without the potential inflammation that comes with heme iron. So my recommendation, or I can't really give a recommendation. I'm not your doctor, but what I would propose is considering a plant-based iron supplement. So for example, Gaia is a company that makes a liquid plant-based iron. Now, one other thing, actually two other things I want to mention, fun facts when it comes to iron. All right, let's do some fun facts. Number one, iron can make your stool turn black. Don't be surprised when you have black stool after you start that iron supplement, something to be aware of. Number two, vitamin C dramatically improves the absorption of iron. So this is synergy, food synergy. And when you take your iron supplement, you should have an orange or a grapefruit or a squeeze of lemon in your water. And the vitamin C strawberries, just eat some strawberries. They're actually the rich source of vitamin C. If you get the vitamin C and you pair that with the iron that you're taking, you will increase your absorption, you will increase the availability of the iron, and therefore you will be able to achieve your goal of basically getting your iron stores back to where they need to be without having to take as much of a supplement.
Next question comes to us from New Blue. Does wheat gluten affect gut health in a bad way?
All right, so this is a great question, and I'm glad that this question was asked. And let me just say before I jump in that Chuck, you and I mean, even 30 minutes, the healthiest half hour in the entire planet. I don't know if that'd be enough time for us to fully unpack this question because it's very complicated. Because what I'm having to push back against is basically 8 years of people being out there and vilifying gluten and making it sound like this is the worst thing that exists on the entire planet. And the science simply does not say that. Now, let me start here. Where are people getting this idea that gluten is bad for us? Well, they are taking it from research. They're taking it from test tube studies. And test tube studies are really, really good and necessary for us to create hypotheses, ideas, right? It shows us mechanisms, but we always, always need to prove what we find in a test tube in real humans. Because if we do not prove it, then I'll tell you what, there have been a million examples where the test tube study says one thing, and if we accepted that as written in stone, we would be really quacky with our science. So let's not allow quacky science to occur. Let's require human studies. What happens when I, a human being, eats a piece of wheat, like wheat bread, for example? Well, the concern that people have had with gluten is that it increases intestinal permeability and it damages the lining of the gut. When they have studied what happens in real humans consuming wheat, they find that it improves the lining of the gut and it reduces intestinal permeability, aka it is the opposite of leaky gut. It is improving the gut, making it healthier. Why? Well, because gluten-containing foods are not just vehicles for gluten. Gluten-containing foods are real food that include fiber. And in the case of wheat, they contain fructans, which are prebiotic, and resistant starches. And as a result of those things, you are feeding your gut microbiome and you are producing butyrate, and that actually improves the health of your gut microbiome. So, bottom line, if you have celiac disease, you should not be consuming gluten. No questions about that. If you do not have celiac disease, the vast majority of people should be consuming some high quality gluten containing foods as a part of their diet to enhance the health of their gut microbiome. And if you want to learn more about this, I actually did an entire hour on gluten on my Instagram, and you will find it on my IGTV stories.
I would highly recommend that. You're a must follow on IG, by the way. I thoroughly enjoy what it is that you bring to the table there. You are a fun follow, my friend. Next question. Well, all right. So we were talking about the controversies surrounding gluten, but what about the controversy surrounding corn? I didn't know that there was such great controversy, but Jody is wondering, have you heard about this controversy surrounding corn, and what are your thoughts on corn?
All right. Whether we are talking about corn or we are talking about soy, the controversy that exists is actually being motivated, believe it or not, by animal feed. Those products, corn and soy, are produced principally in the United States to feed the animals as a part of animal agriculture. And no surprise, anytime animal agriculture is involved, you should expect there are maximum shortcuts being taken. Bottom line, if I were hypothetically a CEO of a pig farm or a cow farm, if I were a CEO, I want to produce maximum pounds with minimum cost. Why? Because that means that I make more money, right? So the concern with corn and with soy is that they are being genetically modified to be tolerant of the herbicide glyphosate. And in the United States, they are being sprayed when they are genetically modified with glyphosate so that you can increase and enhance crop production. By increasing crop production, you are creating more efficiency in the system, which leads to more money, which leads to bigger bonuses for CEOs at the end of the year. So much of the vilification that occurs with corn and with soy has to do with genetically modified glyphosate sprayed crops. When we are consuming stuff that you know the source, you know the farmer, it's summer, it's July, you want to enjoy some corn, that is not something that's unhealthy for your gut. And that is not the same as the corn that's being fed to the cow. This is different. And so from my perspective, I don't see the corn as being something that we should live in fear from. In the same way that I think that the fear of soy is absurd. Soy is such a healthy food when you are consuming high quality sources of soy that are organic and not being sprayed with glyphosate.
All right, let's see if we can grab a couple of more here before we're out of time. Annette, do too many carbs turn into fat? I'm assuming she's talking about healthy carbs here.
Well, carbs is a description that we probably need to move away from. We use the word carb and we're inferring, scientifically speaking, a carb could be a donut, but it could also be fiber. Is fiber causing weight gain? No. Actually, in fact, in randomized controlled trials, we know that people who consume more dietary fiber, they lose weight. It's very clear. Are carbs that are found in fruit the problem? No. Actually, in studies where they look at people who consume more fruit, guess what? They lose weight. In fact, Neil Barnard, head of PCRM, has conducted several studies at this point, many of which have published, including the recent Mediterranean diet versus the plant-based diet study, where people consume a plant-based diet ad lib, meaning however they want, as much as they want, without restriction. And what he finds every single time, and you know this, Chuck, is that when people consume a plant-based diet without restrictions, but it truly is plant-based, whole food plant-based, when people eat that way, they lose weight. They always do. They always lose weight because they're activating their satiety hormones with fiber, and in that process, consuming less calories. And so, are carbs bad for our weight? Will they turn into fat? If you're talking about donuts, you're talking about bagels and cupcakes, yes, those are not good for us. If we're talking about carbs coming from whole food plant-based, because that's a high carb diet, if you're talking about that, I would have zero fear of a whole food plant-based diet. In fact, if you increased your carb intake by eating real whole foods, you would lose weight.
And I will also just piggyback on that and say that I eat a ton of carbs and have maintained my weight loss, despite the fact that I'm eating probably more carbs now than ever. It's just a different type of carb. That's really simply what it boils down to. Final question, Dr. B. And this is one coming from Fabi, is wondering, generally speaking, because obviously this is not your patient, but general advice here. Fabi says that my mom has diverticulitis and her doctor told her not to eat a lot of fiber, especially things with small seeds. Is this right in your opinion?
Okay, two things. So, number one, when you are actively having a diverticulitis flare, meaning that you are on antibiotics, you have pain in the left lower quadrant, perhaps nausea or a fever. When you are actively having a diverticulitis flare, it actually makes sense to back down on the fiber and simplify your diet temporarily. Why? Because your body is fighting an infection and you are taking antibiotics, and you don't need to put the additional strain of unpacking the fiber on your gut in that moment. You allow things to cool off. When you have moved past the infection, which is typically, 7 to 10 days, perhaps even less. When you have moved past the infection, then is the time to transition out of low fiber and transition towards high fiber, because high fiber is in your best health interest. And that is going to protect you, we believe, from future flares of diverticulitis. Now, these things that you're describing to us, chia seeds, flax seeds, strawberries, the reason why the doctor is saying be cautious with these things is based upon scientific dogma. There was a study done literally in Africa nearly 100 years ago, and it suggested that seed consumption was associated with diverticulitis. All right. Now, Chuck, if you took literally the exact same study and you tried to publish it this year, it would be published in a journal so small, so inconsequential that no one would even know that the paper exists. But the problem is that because this paper existed 80 years ago, it has been carried forward in medical schools for decades. And that's created a lot of dogma where it's hard to get the entire system to transition away from that when the new science is very clear that these seeds, like chia and flax and strawberries, which, by the way, all of them are wonderful sources of fiber, these seeds are not the cause of diverticulitis. We don't have evidence to suggest that. And I'm just going to, as an anecdote, Chuck, and to close out here, share that, I do colonoscopy for a living. I see diverticuli multiple times per week. You know what I never see? I never see seeds stuck in these diverticuli. I mean, I'm not just saying this. Like, I literally never see seeds stuck in these diverticuli. You know what I see? I see balls of poop. Balls of poop get stuck in these diverticuli. Why? Because in the United States, 95% of Americans are not consuming an adequate amount of fiber. And their low fiber diet is basically affecting the stool in a way where it can get stuck in these cracks and these crevices, these diverticuli. And so this is where the high fiber diet is to our benefit. Chia seeds, flax seeds, strawberries, don't take them out. Keep them in your diet. Double down on them, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and so let me sneak one in for myself. I was just having a conversation this past week, talking about if somebody is eating a high fiber diet, is it possible for them still to be constipated? Somebody said that it is possible if the person is also dehydrated, not getting enough fluid. Have you heard that? Is that something that you've seen?
Yeah, so fiber is something that, first of all, I think you guys know, the world's biggest fan of fiber. I'm
No.
pretty sure that my book is the biggest seller on the topic of fiber in the history of the planet. And yet we need to acknowledge the nuance that exists with anything. Like life is not about simple rules that we just categorically follow to the extreme. Fiber is your friend when you are moving your bowels, and it will help you to keep your bowels moving when they are moving. However, when you become constipated, pouring more fiber down there, unless it jumpstarts your bowels and you start moving again, pouring more fiber down there can paradoxically make you feel worse and even make your constipation worse. So the key, Chuck, and this is, again, like I know this is the very end here, so it's hard for me to completely unpack this as much as I would like to. But the key here is you have to get your bowels moving, all right? And when you get your bowels moving, fiber is your friend, and you want to continue to consume that fiber in a high amount. When your bowels are not moving, don't try to ramp up the fiber for the sake of moving the bowels. Instead, get the bowels moving and then ramp up the fiber. Last thing, I think this is a good way for us to close. You want to float that log down the river. Float that log down the river with water. All right. So make sure that you're getting yourself enough hydration so that you can, when you're consuming a lot of fiber, so that you can float that log. Don't let the poop get dried up on a rocky bed of like a creek of rocks. Okay. Don't let it get dried up. Make sure you're drinking enough water when you're consuming your fiber, and keep those bowels moving.
Give him a follow on Instagram. The man is filled with knowledge, the Gut Health MD. Also, head over to the plantfedgut.com. Sign up to take the free Plant Fed Gut 5-day challenge. Dr. Will Bulsiewicz, the man who knows more about fiber than anybody else in the entire world. Thank you for spending the last 42 minutes with us, man. This has been awesome.
My pleasure, my friends. Thank you so much, and we'll see if I have a man bun in about 4 weeks. Thanks,
Yeah,
everyone.
I look forward to it. So you are on the second Tuesday of every month doing the exam room live. So keep those gut health questions coming, and we'll do our best to get you an answer on an upcoming episode. You the man, Dr. B.
All right, thanks, Chuck. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
All right. And that, my friend, is all the time that we have for this particular episode. If we did not get to your question, as I say, keep them coming. Keep posting them in the chat box or in the comments section, or you can shoot me a message on Twitter and Instagram at Chuck Carroll, WLC. Just make sure that you use that hashtag Exam Room Live. You can also send that to at PCRM or at Physicians Committee on the gram as well. So keep those questions coming in, and we'll try to get you an answer on a future episode. I want to say thank you one more time to Dr. B for joining us, and to the crew behind the scenes that makes the magic happen. Thank you, guys. And to you, my exam roomies, thank you for spending part of your day with us. We greatly appreciate you raising your health IQ here alongside us on the exam room. And for everybody here at the Physicians Committee, I am the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll. We'll talk to you again soon. But until then, stay safe, take a stand, and keep it plant-based.